So, I want you to close your eyes for just a second.
Right.
Seriously, just, humor me here. Imagine you are standing in a room, and right on the table in front of you is a briefcase.
Okay, a briefcase.
Yeah. And inside that briefcase is $5 million. Cash. Tax-free. It is yours. You don't have to do anything else to get it. You just pick it up, walk out the door, and you are totally done.
Wow.
Right. You never have to work again. You can pay off every debt, maybe buy a house on the coast, secure your kids' college funds, buy a boat. It's the golden ticket.
It's the dream scenario, really. Yeah. It's that kind of walk-away money.
Exactly. But here's the catch. There is another door in this room, and behind that door is not a guarantee, but a chance to make $300 million.
Okay, that's a massive jump.
It is. But to open that door, you have to risk your life. You have to risk going to prison for the rest of your natural life, risk your family being destroyed, and you have to keep doing this thing that is slowly, day by day, rotting your soul. So the question for you is, when is enough enough? Do you take the $5 million and run, or do you gamble it all for the empire?
It's the classic gambler's dilemma, isn't it?
Yeah.
But, raised to the level of a Greek tragedy, I mean, most of us, most rational people, we take the briefcase. We take the win.
You would think so. But human psychology is a very messy thing, and that is the central conflict we are looking at today. We are doing a deep dive into Breaking Bad, specifically Season 5, Episode 6, which is titled Buyout.
Buyout. Even just the title alone suggests this business transaction. But as we know with this show, nothing is ever just business.
Never. If you are a fan of the show, you know this is a hugely pivotal moment. It's the exact moment pun intended there, starts to really wobble on the tracks.
Definitely.
If you haven't seen it in a while, or if you're new to the analysis of the show, trust me, the psychological turning points here are absolutely fascinating.
And we have a really extensive stack of sources for today's deep dives. We are pulling directly from the Wikipedia entry for this specific episode. So that covers the intricate plot details, the critical reception, and the production notes.
And our mission today is pretty specific. We aren't just recapping the plot here. We really want to unpack how the fallout from a heist gone wrong fractures the central partnership of the show.
Right, the disintegration of the trio, Walt, Jesse, and Mike.
Exactly. And crucially, we're going to finally answer the question of why. Why does Walter White refuse the exit ramp?
Yeah, there's a very specific backstory involving a company called Gray Matter that we absolutely need to dissect today.
It's basically the Rosetta Stone for the whole series, isn't it?
It really is. Once you understand Gray Matter, you understand everything about Walt's ego.
So let's set the stage. This episode, Buyout, it was written by Jennifer Hutchison, directed by Colin Buxey, and it aired on August 19th, 2012. And it drops us right into a total nightmare scenario.
Right. The immediate context is key here. We are picking up immediately after the train heist from the previous episode.
Dead freight.
Yes, dead freight. And usually, in your standard heist movie, the scene after the robbery is the celebration.
Right, popping champagne, throwing money in the air.
High fives all around. But Breaking Bad completely subverts that expectation in just the most horrific way possible. The heist was a success, financially speaking. They got the methylamine. But it ended with Todd Alquist, the new guy, the employee shooting a child.
Drew Sharp,
a kid who just happened to be riding his dirt bike out in the desert and saw them.
And that leads us directly into our first segment, the moral aftermath. Or, as I like to call it, the cold open from hell.
It is so grim. The source material actually describes this scene in a very clinical way, which in my opinion actually makes it worse. We have Walter White, Mike Ehrmantraut, and Todd Alquist. And they aren't counting money. They are destroying evidence.
Specifically, the body of Drew Sharp and his dirt bike. Let's slow down and really look at the mechanics of this scene, because the source emphasizes that clinical nature. We aren't just seeing a body being moved, we are seeing a process, a routine.
Right. The source notes the use of specific chemicals, hydrofluoric acid, and the systematic breakdown of the dirt bike. It's manual labor to them. They are taking apart this piece of childhood innocence, this bike, with wrenches and saws.
That's the real horror of it for me, the total banality. They are dismantling a child's bike with the same emotional detachment you'd use to take apart a toaster. And the silence allows us to focus entirely on the characters' faces.
Which turns this into a massive character study, particularly for Todd Alquist. The outline highlights his reaction specifically. The source notes that Todd casually dismisses the killing.
That word casually is doing so much heavy lifting there, it is genuinely terrifying.
It really is. It forces you to ask, is Todd just a good, pragmatic employee? Or is he a full-blown psychopath?
Or maybe he is the perfect employee for Walter White's empire. Because look at the contrast in that room. You have Jesse Pinkman over in the corner. He is described as being completely incensed. He's visibly shaken, traumatized.
Jesse represents the audience in this scene. He is our moral baseline. His reaction is the correct human reaction to seeing a child murdered and dissolved in acid.
And the source notes that Jesse is so incensed he actually punches Todd.
Which is a very natural physical reaction. He needs to manifest that outrage.
And that punch leads to a heated debate. You have this trio, Walt, Jesse, and Mike, standing there arguing about what to do with the guy who just murdered a kid. And what strikes me is the logic they apply to this situation.
It is pure criminal logic, utilitarian. If they fire him, he's a massive loose end. He knows about the train heist, the methylamine, their faces.
They can't call the police, obviously, so they have two choices. Kill him to silence him, or keep him close.
The resolution they land on is fascinating. They agree to spare Todd's life, but they decide to keep him on the payroll at Vamonos Pest to monitor him.
Keep your enemies closer.
Exactly. But think about the tension that creates. The tension between Jesse's moral outrage and the pragmatic survival instincts of Mike and Walt. That tension is the catalyst for the fracture that drives the rest of the episode.
Which brings us perfectly to segment 2, the fracture. Because it's not just the internal guilt eating them up. The external pressure is mounting too.
Right. The DEA is back in the picture. The source mentions that the DEA begins actively surveilling Mike.
And Mike is hypervigilant. He spots the heat, and this changes his calculus completely. As a result of this surveillance, Mike decides to leave the meth operation entirely.
Because Mike is the ultimate pragmatist. If the risk outweighs the reward, he walks away. But internally, Jesse also wants out, just for a totally different reason.
This is a really clear divergence in the trio. The source notes Jesse is distraught about Drew's death. So Mike acts on logic and survival. Jesse acts on emotion and sheer guilt.
So you have 2/3 of the partnership wanting to pull the ripcord. And they come up with a solution, the buyout proposal.
Let's talk about the plan here. Mike and Jesse propose selling their massive tank of methylane to a rival dealer named Declan.
Right, they essentially want to wholesale a raw chemical instead of cooking it.
Yeah.
And the numbers here are staggering. The source explicitly states this sale could net them as much as $5 million each.
$5 million each. Let's contextualize that. That is life-changing money. For Jesse, it's a fresh start, a way to escape the trauma. For Mike, it's the security he wanted for his granddaughter.
Is the definition of a clean win. You take the $5 million and you walk away before anyone else gets hurt or arrested.
It seems like the perfect logical ending.
And yet,
we hit the brick wall named Walter White, which takes us to segment 3, the Empire business.
This is where the episode elevates from a tense crime drama into a deep psychological tragedy. Walt outright refuses to sell his share.
And let's look at the economics of meth, because Walt justifies this refusal with math. He claims that processing the methylamine into blue meth is worth, quote, as much as $300 million.
The spread there is massive. $5 million versus $300 million. On paper, purely looking at potential yield, Walt is right.
But the conflict is that Declan wants all the methylamine to get the blue meth off the market. So because Walt refuses to sell his third, he effectively blocks Mike and Jesse from selling their shares. He holds them hostage.
But the real motivation isn't the $300 million. And we learn this in what I think is the psychological key to the entire episode, the gray matter backstory.
Yes. The scene where Jesse visits Walt's house to try and change his mind. Walt compares this current buyout situation to a specific past trauma involving his old company, Gray Matter Technologies.
The source gives us the specific details of this revelation. Walt tells Jesse that he sold his 33.3% share in Gray Matter for a mere $5,000.
$5,000.
$5,000. He took the clean win back then. He took the quick buyout. And then he watched that company go on to be worth, according to the source, over $2 billion.
That is just a nauseating realization. He lost out on hundreds of millions of dollars.
It is a profound psychological wound. So when Walt looks at this $5 million offer, he doesn't see a win. He sees himself making the exact same mistake he made with Gray Matter. He isn't chasing money anymore.
He is chasing the billions he feels he was robbed of years ago.
Exactly. He is trying to correct a past mistake through the meth trade. And he tells Jesse, quote, he doesn't see this as a drug business, but as the building of an empire.
Building of an empire, that line gives me chills. because it shows he is so obsessed with his ego and this perceived legacy that he is willing to destroy everyone around him.
Which leads us right into the domestic side of things. Segment 4, domestic irony. Because while Walt is fantasizing about empires, his home life is a total nightmare.
We have to talk about the subplot involving Skyler White and her sister Marie Schrader. Skyler is really suffering. The source describes a moment where a tearful Skyler is tempted to confess her criminal involvement to Marie.
The pressure is just too much for her. But then we get this incredible twist. Marie stops her from confessing, revealing that she already knows what's wrong.
But she is completely incorrect.
Exactly. Marie believes Skyler's anguish is due to an affair with Ted Beneke.
Which is such brilliant situational irony. The affair cover story, which is supposed to be this shameful secret, actually protects Skyler from revealing the much darker truth about the drug empire.
It isolates Skyler even further because her sister has already accepted a false narrative.
Yeah.
And then we get the dinner scene.
Oh, the dinner scene. Skyler arrives home while Jesse is there discussing the buyout, and Walt insists that Jesse stay for dinner.
The source simply describes it as an awkward meal, which might be the understatement of the year.
It really is. It brings these three distinct worlds together at one table. You have the criminal world, the domestic world, and the victim, Skyler.
And Walt is sitting there, essentially using his own broken marriage to manipulate Jesse. He's trying to show Jesse that the business is all he has left, to make Jesse feel sorry for him.
It is a masterclass in emotional manipulation. But despite all that, Mike is still out there, and Mike wants his money, which shifts the episode into high gear. Segment 5, Cat and Mouse.
Walt versus Mike. The heist within a heist. Walt attempts to physically hide the methylamine to prevent the sale entirely.
But Mike is a seasoned pro. He anticipates the move. He catches Walt and restrains him in the Vamonos pest offices, literally zip ties his hands.
And while Walt is tied up, Mike executes this brilliant legal maneuver. He and Saul Goodman meet with Hank Schrader and Steve Gomez at the DEA.
They actually serve an injunction to stop the surveillance of Mike. It is incredibly bold.
And it works. It buys Mike the time he needs, but they underestimated Walt's desperation.
The source outlines his escape. Walt manages to free himself, improvising a way to burn through the zip ties, and he successfully hides the methylamine before Mike gets back.
Which brings us to the climax of the episode. Mike returns, finds the tank gone, and threatens to kill Walt.
He has a gun right to his head. But Jesse interrupts the standoff, and Jesse offers a cliffhanger solution. He claims Walt has a plan to get everyone their money.
Mike, Jesse, and Walt. A magical win-win scenario that Walt has supposedly cooked up to save his own life.
It leaves the audience completely breathless. Now let's look at how the world reacted to this intense setup. Segment 6, Critical Reception and Legacy.
The numbers for this broadcast were strong. We were looking at 2.81 million viewers and a 5 rating in the 18 to 49 demographic.
The critical response was actually quite mixed, which is interesting. On the positive side, Donna Bowman from the AV Club gave it an A. She called it a standout episode for showing two sides of the truth of Walt's life.
Seth Emitan at IGN also praised it, rating it an 8.5 out of 10. He really liked how the show dealt with the emotional impact of the characters' own messes.
But then we have the mixed reviews. Sean T. Collins from Rolling Stone felt the episode stumbled. He criticized it for lacking compelling drama, where characters act within recognizable, reasonable human behavior.
Which is an interesting critique, and Alan Sepinwall at HitFix called it muddled compared to previous episodes. He liked individual components, like Walt's improvised blowtorch escape and the awkward meal, but felt they didn't entirely work together.
Why do you think it got those mixed reactions?
Well, my analysis is that this is a classic bridge episode. It's moving major pieces around Mike leaving, the buyout offer, rather than being a high-octane action episode. But it contains incredibly deep character work regarding Walt's ego. Sometimes setup episodes feel a bit disjointed to critics in the moment.
That makes total sense. But the performances were undeniable. Aaron Paul was nominated for a Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Supporting Actor specifically for this episode.
Very well deserved.
And as for its legacy, in 2019, The Ringer ranked Buyout 42nd out of 62 total episodes.
Which places it solid middle of the pack, but structurally it's foundational for everything that follows.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's summarize the main takeaways. We witnessed the permanent fracturing of the central team, the introduction of the Empire motivation as the core driver for Walt, and a tense logistical chess match over the methylamine.
It all connects back to the concept of sunk cost and ego. We have to ask ourselves, how often do we refuse a real win like that $5 million because we are haunted by a past loss, like the gray matter $2 billion?
It's a powerful lesson. And I want to leave you with one final provocative thought based on the source material. Walt sold his share of gray matter for $5,000. If he had never sold that share, he would be a legitimate legal billionaire today.
Right.
So is every single criminal action Walt takes simply a desperate, toxic attempt to get back to a timeline that no longer exists? Does the empire business actually exist, or is it just a ghost story Walt tells himself to justify the nightmare he's created?
That is the ultimate question of the show. If it's a ghost story, it's one of the very real body count.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.